Like I say, I let my marks, even though they're subtle tones, kind of move with the direction of the form. And the problem I've seen some of you guys have with the sphere is that you've been making those reflected lights too light. You can kind of tell just by putting these darker darks in, that first tone is already starting to look really light in relation to what it looked like a while ago. All of that goes into a deeper shadow. Coarse shadow comes up here. And I come down, I can see that's reflecting light and that's reflecting light, but this reflecting light on this area is darker than that one because of the change in the form. So that means I got to take this area down, make it lighter than what's going to end up being there, but darker than this reflecting light here. Kind of like when we did the value scale, when you're trying to get the squares to be the correct relationship with one another. So this means that needs to go a little darker. Get back into the eye. So you can kind of tell I'm bouncing around rather than getting stuck in any one area. And my marks have been put down with the subtle mark to where I'm not committed to anything. I could still change my mind on anything if I wanted to. I found out I had to. Shape, cutout shape of the eye in here. Now I'm going to gradually keep adjusting the values, but also start looking a little more specifically at the edge, the variety of the edges within the shadow. Because I know that they're not all super hard, but there's still some that are, seemingly harder than others, even though they're not razor sharp. And there's a rim of reflecting light right here, and the way I'm going to get that is by pushing the value just above it, not by erasing out that reflecting light. As soon as I push this one down, the reflecting light up there will start to become a little more noticeable as well. And I come up and I have another core shadow here, but it's not as dark as what's going on over here. So even though it's darker than the reflected light, I got to make sure I don't push this core shadow in this area too dark. leads me back to saying this coarse shadow needs to go darker now. So now I go down and push it down a little more as I need to. This is kind of what I'm meaning when I say I work from I subtly build up my darks. I mean, I've kind of hit these areas of dark in a few passes, not in one shot. And then right next to it, this could come down a little bit more. And this area is darker than this, but some of what's going on here is a little darker than that. So I gotta get a kind of bounce. My attention has to bounce between all three of these areas when I'm looking at the cast, even though I'm just drawing in this one spot. That'll sound great on YouTube. This is going on YouTube, so the whole world will be able to hear that. Still using an HB, yeah. And here, I mean, clearly there's reflected light, and then there's darker shadow, and there's an edge, but the edge is very soft, which is why I go back to that issue I was saying before, but I'm gradually building up the dark because I don't want to have this look like it's a hard cutout. Otherwise it's going to flatten out what I'm doing. And it's going to make the contrast between the two areas get a little too extreme. And it's not going to read like it's in shadow anymore. So you can exploit an HB pencil or a 2B pencil for a lot. You know, and I'd probably encourage you to do that. Don't try to think that, well, I have to use every possible pencil I have in my pencil box. I mean, use them as needed. Your pencil's a tool like anything else, so sometimes you need to use it a lot, and sometimes you don't. It depends on your particular situation. Shadow's a little more prominent. I could go into shadow a little bit more. There's another darker area. If you think about it, like I was saying earlier, there's a really dark. Nothing in the cast is that dark. So if you have to, put a dark mark maybe on a scrap sheet next to your drawing as a guide. Or maybe pull out that value scale that you did as a guide for not going too dark. I mean, in the same sense, you could go too light if you're too timid, but I would say it's a lot easier to push something darker than it is to make something lighter a lot of times. So that's why I'm building up to my lighter lights.